Great privilege to have Professor D.K. Lobiyal sir with us. He is working as a professor in the School of Computer and System Science, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Today, sir will enlightening us very important topic and need of an hour that how to write a research grant proposal. So now, without much delay, I would like to invite sir to share your knowledge and the words of wisdom. Sir, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vishal, and thank you, Professor Hoda Saab, inviting me again today to deliver lecture in this FDP. Vishal, am I audible, na? Clearly audible?
Sir, all things are working properly, sir.
Okay, but that's it. I want to make
Yes.
sure. And this lecture I am supposed to give on research grant proposal. Seems to be difficult topic for 2 hours, but I have tried my best to deliver whatever I can deliver. And then I think 1 hour 45 minutes we'll have a talk. Then last 15 minutes we'll leave for question answer session, and that is how we'll go. And let me simply begin because research grant is important. That I always start with acknowledging the views and ideas expressed our mind, but uh, again because there are different formats, different way of looking at how you can get research grant, whether international, national, but at the same time the views may also differ because there is no very well defined that this is the way. If you write a research proposal, you will 100% get the research grant. That may not happen, and there is no what you call stick given to you that if you follow that you will get the project sanctioned. There is no such guarantee, but nevertheless there are some commonalities and common points. If one follows, will be able to write a good proposal. So that is why I said you may not agree with my views all the time, but there are still some views which may be important for all, and it may be helpful in overall understanding of how to write a grant proposal, and depending on who, which is the sponsoring agency you are targeting, and which area you are targeting for your project. So it depends many things: research area, the discipline, the granting agency, and the institution, because every institution has a facilitating mechanism for obtaining research grant. If your university or institution does not have that facilitating mechanism available, then it also becomes difficult. So the institution mechanism available for facilitating you, and the sponsoring agencies, and your target project, whether it matches with the objective projects of the sponsoring agency or not. That depends on how much work you have done in the area and what you are targeting, and who are your target audience. So depending on the three factors are very important, which will help you. But nevertheless, what I am trying to say is the idea which I am propagating here will definitely help you if somebody is interested to go about it. And I acknowledge those whose ideas I have read, and knowingly, unknowingly, I might have used. If I have used knowingly, I always try to acknowledge them and give them as a part of reference. Sometimes small ideas are not possible to give them cite in a presentation, to cite them, or to make a reference for that. So therefore, at least one must acknowledge, because all ideas you cannot generate by yourself. So whatever idea you develop your own idea, it has a basis, but because you take from somebody else's idea as a basis and then you develop your own idea, so you must always recognize and thank them for your presentation. Now, what I'm going to talk about is the background introduction and little bit without any slide on selecting how to select research project, your source material availability, how to go about it, and then finally how to write a proposal. And then once you have written a proposal and then submitted, and then once you have executed a project, I'm not talking how to execute, because that those who are writing projects and submitting their projects, they know how to execute the project, and it is for a certain period of time with a certain grant given to you. When you finish, or even while you are doing or carrying out your project, you have to also support and submit certain progress reports. So you have to make a progress report in between, either 6 monthly or yearly, depending on the demand or requirement of the project granting agency. And then finally, at the end of the completion, you have to submit a completion report of the project. So that is what I will cover towards then. Then of course, all presentation has to be completed with a conclusion. So I'll also have a conclusion which I have not written here. This is what the whole idea is, and let me put a little background. What I'm saying is to meet the expenditure of conducting. Why do we need a research project to be? One reason is at times to conduct research we need grants. If you look at the biological sciences, without meeting the day-to-day expenses of chemicals they need for conducting their experiment, I don't think they can guide a PhD. They can supervise a PhD because in life sciences, experimental sciences, to carry a PhD for 3-4 years, you need enough grant to buy chemicals. Even if you have one-time grant to have equipment, because uh, and the running expenses of each student to buy the chemicals required, you need to have some grant. Probably in computer science at times we don't feel that we need some grant because let us, okay, we are using some freely open access simulation tool. We put our idea, we have a desktop or a laptop, we try to run that simulation tool and then try to work out something, and probably we can complete our PhD at times. But if you are really on experimental sciences where the material is required on day-to-day basis, then definitely you need grant. So the conducting research also requires some expenditure. To meet that, you need a project. For biological science, for a faculty, it seems mandatory or what you call inevitable to have a project. That is one reason. Second reason is also to realize that whatever theory or concept you design, develop at a point of time, you need to realize through implementation. Whether your ideas or the theory you have given can practically work, it is a pragmatic idea or not. So therefore, you need to have its theory and the concept given its application. And application at times is possible only through certain implementation. And the implementation also requires certain materials, certain equipments, and therefore to buy those equipment and this you need grant. And many of the institutions in the country take whatever best institution you take does not have sufficient grant from the government of India or the state governments to conduct your research. Even if you take your IITs and NITs, keep one thing in mind. Yes, they get good grant from government, but still that grant is not sufficient to run there. And if they don't take the project, the grant through projects, they have an alumni funds. They also have a very high fee, and therefore they are able to sustain their day-to-day carrying on. Small institutions where you purely depend on the government funding, your fees is a very low, which you cannot because the students are poor, they cannot pay. So therefore, from where you generate the grants, only one way is to have some projects from the sponsoring agency. Therefore, research projects are very, very important in the current day to carry out your research work. That is one. Second is the project also has, grant projects also has weightage in your API score, your career advancement, your promotions, right? You need some academic performance indicator score, and the project, depending on the cost of projects, science and social science has a differentiation because science project runs with a huge money in crores of rupees, where social science project run in some lakhs and small amount. So therefore, the UGC has also differentiated, but these projects, depending on the amount, you are also going to get certain API points for your career advancement, either through promotion or direct recruitment, whatever you see. So this is also another importance for applying or for having a grant proposal. Uh, right? And also, even if you don't get API, see, at times people used to take project, but it also, even if you do not have any performance indicator from the project, but a grant proposal also is a kind of contribution of the individual to the overall development of your university or institution. If I bring some money in the institution, even if I do not need for day-to-day running of my PhD student, but that money can be used for buying certain equipment. Even if the project is over, the equipment can be used by the student in the university. And so therefore, this also is the contribution of an individual towards the building of the institution. So if you leave the three above point aside, As a teacher, I feel that I have some contribution towards development of my university, and the project can be one of the way to have a small contribution. Now, when you try to have a project, the first question is you have to locate a funding agency that sponsors project like when you have in mind, because at times you cannot write projects depending on the need of a project agency, because if you are, you can only write projects in the area where you have been working, where you have been researching, and then it's your duty to look for a project funding agency who sponsors project in that area and probably related to your topic. So that is one job. Once you locate the agency maybe your the funding agency may be a government agency. At times they are private agencies, and mostly in India we have government agencies. Abroad there are a lot of private agencies also. Indians also get funds from some private agencies, no doubt about that. And then once you have identified or located a funding agency, then you have to look for what kind of guidelines that funding agency has given to write a project proposal. But each funding agency has its own guidelines of the project, because at the end of the day or in the middle of the running of the project, they have to evaluate project also. So what and where their focus is, what they need, based on that they have made their guidelines, and how much amount they fund, in which area they fund, what kind of heads they will give you funds. So all those guidelines are given, and what other requirements are there. So you have to look the guidelines for the funding agency, and based on that you have to make your project. And some of the government agencies in India is Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Information and Communication Technology. At times, small projects are also given by these are the ministries which give you big projects, especially DBT and DST. Can give you projects of crores of rupees. MICT also gives good money, and but AICT will give you small kinds of projects and not a huge, not very huge money. And so it your UGC University Grant Commission also gives small projects in social sciences, especially. Many social science people take some money, even 3, 4, 5 lakh is sufficient at times for them to do some small work, some survey, something. So these kinds of projects are also given by University Grant Commission. And DRDO in science, especially DRDO also sponsors certain projects. Like say for example, if somebody is working on cryptography, cryptology, and because DRDO, one of the focus of the DRDO is to have a defense security, IT security. So therefore, there is much focus of DRDO, so they also sponsor some project. And anybody who is working on that, look for the projects, what kind of projects they are sponsoring. Department of Languages at times also gives some small amount, but not big, where you can have a technological development of Indian languages. And MICT, Ministry of Information Technology, also gives huge money for technology development of Indian languages. And I did not get the copy long back in early when I joined JNU in 1997. In 98, 2000, we have a project from this. That time it used to call DOE, Department of Electronics, which is now Ministry of Information and Communication Technology. Used to give a huge project in crores of rupees. They gave us to develop uh, machine translation systems from Japanese, Chinese to Hindi, Japanese, Korean, Chinese to Hindi language. Indian language, especially our focus on Hindi. So it was almost a 98 lakh rupees project in 2000. Was a good project. So these are the agencies, because 88 government of India with the help of then DOE, now called MICT, started technological development of Indian language. So still you have a scope to get project from there. And for social science, you have Indian Council of Social Science Research. Social science research, they support small project to social science research and so on. Even if you can have a joint project with the social science, with the impact of your IT on social spectrum, probably you can also apply as a IT professional in ICSR. So it's not that it is only located or meant for social scientists, but the theme should be of social science. That's the important point. So these are some government agencies where you can get projects. Uh, When I say this, in India, sometimes people have collaborative project with the private agencies. Say, for example, say Bharati tell that telecommunication industry has some research grant given to IIT. Say, for example, you can have a project developing for them on cellular telephony or something else. And similarly, I was getting some one company, Text Analytics, long back. They approached me to have a project on to develop something on text analytics long back, but I was engaged somewhere else, and also probably that company could not grow much. We could not collaborate, and even Microsoft also collaborates with the Indian institution. My friend in the Sanskrit Center who also works on IT has a collaboration with Microsoft to incorporate a localization of Indian language, Hindi and Sanskrit in the Microsoft technology is important. So IBM does, Google. So there's a lot of funding avenues, but you need to have very specialization, and you must seem to be very useful for the private agencies in their business. Only then you'll get. A lot of biologists get good amount of fund. Wellcome Trust, an European agency, is a Wellcome Trust. No, sorry, American. They give, and Ford Foundation also gives a huge amount to the social science. So there are private agencies, but mostly in India in science we look for DBT and DST, and computer science to a certain extent. Probably some people try to look at DRDO, probably MICT. So after having said this, each one of them has their own requirements, and but whatever their requirements are, whatever their guidelines are, there are certain key components which any uh, grant proposal must follow. But in addition to these common components, we can have some more additional uh, points which may be specific requirement of a given sponsoring agency. Now, what are these common components? So any project proposal or grant proposal you submit will definitely need the description of the research problem or the research project which you want to carry on, right? Once you have done that, this is one you have to describe. I'll talk in detail what that means. And then the second point comes, whatever research proposal or project you are trying to submit, you must have strong argument to justify its importance, why it is significant, why it is important today, why you want to do it. There must be strong arguments in favor of that. Then only probably the funding agency, if a fair evaluation is done, will feel that this is important at this point of time, therefore we must consider this project. But at the same time, since the funds are limited, institutions are too many in the country, too many projects come, and for the evaluating team, it also really becomes difficult to judge at times. And therefore, not everybody, in spite of a very good project, at times you may not get funds. It may have other parameters as well why you did not get, but the because of the limited number of projects possible due to the funding limitation, probably good projects are rejected. One must not feel disappointed, but next time you must try. It may be next time your turn. You never know. But the good project must have a solid argument in support of why do you want to do this project. Then it also needs a very good review of literature relevant to the problem. That means what is happening nationally and internationally in a area where you have written your project currently, and what is not done, and that is why you want to do something. You are filling certain gaps in terms of the resources, in terms of the knowledge, and in terms of the utilization, the usefulness, and that is what you are trying to do through the project which you are writing. So therefore, it is supposed to be that you are very well versed with the status of the research in the area nationally and internationally. So that will only come from a good review literature which you must mention in a project. Only then the evaluating team will assess that you are the right person to carry out this project, and therefore why not? Therefore, you should be given the projects because you have justified with the strong, deep literature survey and showing very good experience of working in the area. Then your description of the proposed methodology. What is the methodology you are going to follow in your project? What are the steps you will follow and what techniques you use, and the stepwise detailed description of the technology, methods, materials. Because some methods you use or some techniques you use, but what kind of material you are going data for computer science, a data repository may be a material. For biologists, the material may be the chemicals, and for what you call for material scientists, the semiconductor material may be the material. So the material, what you need, availability of the material, and how easily it is available, or that, and what kind of techniques and methods you are going to follow in the entire, and or design, development, and even evaluating you are going to follow in your project, that must be described in this proposed methodology section. If you do that, and then finally, you must also, though you have also given the importance of the argument for in favor of the importance of the project, and you have given your methodology, you have given a literature survey, but even if you carry out this project, whatever you have achieved and whatever findings you have in this project, but how these findings are going to be used, either by the government of India, or by the scientific community, or by the research community, or by the common person. Whatever way you are expecting your outcome, how it is going to be used by the target audience. If the target audience is the research community, you are developing some tools for research, how they are going to use it. If you are developing certain tools to be used by the society, then how society is going to use these findings. Important. And if you are generating certain kinds of policy recommendations, how the government of India are going to use it, or certain government agencies are going to use it. So your description of the findings, how these findings will be used by the target audience is equally important. If you give this much common description in your grant proposal, probably you have a fair chance that your project will reach to a final stage through the proper evaluation by the evaluators or by the evaluation by the expert in the area. Now that may be a different case, that there may be too many projects of the same level and the fund is limited. It may not, but at least you cannot be rejected based on simply that your project is not worth. And therefore, when you decide, keep one thing in mind. I little bit deviate at times. When you evaluate a project in an agency, when you go to evaluate as an expert in the project, see, many times it becomes very difficult because many projects seem to be good and competing with each other, but there is a limitation of funds and what to do. Then the committee has to decide, if I'm talking of a fair evaluation and not any nepotism, not any politics, but if it is fair evaluation, then you have to decide one, because you have fund for only one project. So how do you think? Okay, this seems to be a little better, and give it next time we'll consider this. That is how we think. But next time, whether somebody will apply or not, that is a different issue. Or whether we'll fund available in the same area or not, and how much the relevance of the same project will be. If the area growing faster, and you have to also adapt to the changes within the year next time and submit the project also after making appropriate modifications. That is how, what is very, very important. Now, after having said this, uh, the grant proposals are generally, uh, if I go with a broader area, then I can have area for basic research, and then we have thrust area, and then we have an area development application service oriented area. This is one way of looking at it. Some people see that, okay, I get a grant for research, this is for application development, it is for research, it is for development, it is for service. So there are different ways of looking by the granting. If you go to the MICT, probably this okay, it is for the grant for the research area, the grant for the development purpose. If you are developing certain tools, this is that is how they see. But if you go on DST other side, they say okay, the basic research area, the trust area, and the development. Now the basic area at the moment I say probably somebody is working on a very fundamental of an area where you need to develop certain theory, certain concept, right, which may not translate directly in terms of a technology or a product, but you keep certain theories based on that and certain concept. That is what basic research means, and really we don't get much funds in that because basic research takes a lot of time. Though it does not need large funding, but it needs a lot of time to go through, and, and that's how it doesn't get. And the thirst area, depending on the relevance and the needs of the society, or the societal needs at a given point of time, decide whether which area are relevant at given point of time. And if you are writing projects on that, you have a very high chance of getting funds. And most of the funds are given on the thirst area. When I say thirst area, it may be a project for research in the thirst area, project may be again for development, or some what you call some application or some service that you develop and provide service to the others. So any this can be. And third is the agencies also provide certain funds for development and service. I'll explain what does it mean. So if you look from this angle, in the basic research area, not much grant available, and very few people work on very theoretical physicists and mathematicians, maybe developing some theorems, proving some theorems, need some small projects, maybe 2 lakh rupees, not more. At times it happens. For basic stationery, a basic computational facility, you have to buy computer, laptop, then you need a day-to-day basis printer, you need day-to-day basis contingencies, a lot of things. So even small grant may work for them. Therefore, much grant available on basic research area, and basic research is also difficult to carry out. And that is what the problem with the fundamental research. You have to give any theory almost or develop new concept. And thirst area is now look at it much grant available, and because it is directly impacting the needs of the society at a given point of time, and therefore grant in this area is available more. And now, therefore, the focus on what society recently needs is very important. Now, look at the COVID-19, and all of us will find that DST and DBT has a lot of heads for grant for funding in COVID-19 related research, such as COVID-19 infection, such as development of vaccine, some others say development of tools which can easily identify whether you have a COVID virus infection or not quickly. Within few seconds, can I have a handheld device and which test immediately and gives a report. Like I test my sugar. I don't have a sugar, but I mean anybody. You test your sugar, put the instrument, put your finger and blood sugar, and you test immediately. Results are on. Can I have such kind of tools for measurement of a malaria research? I have a handheld device in my pocket, and then can I develop put in my finger and say whether you have a malaria or not. If I'm fevering, feeling feverish and having a cold and shivering, where the symptoms seem to be malaria, can I have that kind of device. So what I'm trying to say, probably why are you not able to find such kind of test device is a later issue. Probably some research may be needed, needs immediate attention. If such things uh, are there, then dengue maybe easier at home. You can decide quickly whether you have a dengue or not. You can't go there and morning test and then wait evening or for the next day to get your reports. Could be one area where you need thirst area. Cyber security seems to be a thirst area also now, because with the kind of a cyber attacks we have right now and our spread with the IT technology, the threats on the cyber space are increasing day by day. And therefore, especially on the government accounts, not only money accounts but other secret documents, these attacks are increasing day by day. Therefore, One of the thrust area is a cyber security. Other areas may be there. I'm not focusing on this. And biotechnology area, there are a lot of new areas keep on coming for research. So these becomes a thrust area. Whether you like, if you look at the DST now, physical cyber space or security is a very key area where funding is done because of COVID-19. All funding has shifted. But otherwise, this machine learning area for computer scientists may be a good area where you can design tools and develop all those kind of. And then you have a developmental research where you get funds to develop certain tools and certain techniques. As I said, the example of a malaria. Can I have as I said, have a small device through which I can measure the malaria? We try to do something with my student to have a magnetic resonance system to develop small device, but we have not been able to do it that way. But we have so small experimentation, but because the magnet size seems to be larger, how to use the small magnet which has a small Tesla. So then how to use it, that is a big challenge there. So if you have to develop that kind of products, so it's a development, we need funds where we have to, every time we have to make an antenna kind of thing and check, and tools, then we have to need blood sample and check all the time. So ultimately you develop tools. Like say for COVID-19, I said, can I have a text divide? We only have a thermal, we measure, or we have something we put on the nose and say, this test is antigen test, which has a 70% success. Only PCR test is the 100% success. But PCR test you cannot do at home, it takes time, it is done in the laboratory. Can we have instrument which small instrument with like kind of antigen test we do it? Can it quickly give the result and it gives 100%? So if you develop such kind of tools, that is what is a development area. You try to develop some products in terms of tools or in terms of even software products, and that will also need some kind of industrial collaboration. Now, probably it may not be possible to develop projects where you have to come out with the product and other things. It cannot be simply done by an university where you have few students who are trained in a year or two and then leave, and the supervisor burdened with the supervision, teaching, evaluating. If it's continuous evaluation and 3 4 exams you take, then not possible. So it needs good teamwork, and where the private players come into picture. And such kind of research really take off if you have a collaboration with the industry. It's important. Therefore, the agencies nowadays are also looking for the private and public participation. If you like, I was looking at the DST. DST also gives a project on the cyber physical security. If you have a collaboration with
Or
some of,
International Fellowship for Advanced Studies.
hello,
Sorry, sir. There was some disturbance from some participant. Now it is okay, sir.
ओके ठीक है मैंने कहा सवाल सवाल जवाब तो बाद में होंगे ना लास्ट में
जी जी जी.
so anyway, so you need to have a collaboration with the industry, whether national, international, whatsoever it is important for development, especially to develop biotechnology tools. And if you are working on IoT enabled agriculture, somebody says you need to develop some tools until unless you have somebody from the agriculture area, but you have an industry who knows how to develop IoT devices. You may be doing research in the university, but you do not have all available material to develop really tools like what you call an IoT device where you can have what you call a IoT enabled sensor device. You probably may not develop in the university. You have to go if you are doing, but you need some setup in collaboration of the industry. What are the standard university and industries following? Well, that keeps on changing as well. So it is very important for developmental research that you should have collaboration with the industry abroad or Indian. That is what is important. Uh, so after having said this, that what you need uh, to have a different kind of projects. Now, uh, I must have a project in mind what I'm going to do. Now, you can look for a project. I said how to select a project. See, uh, you cannot, sometimes we also want to write a project, but it cannot be written until unless we really are working in the area. So therefore, you must add this theoretically. So it can be, you can say, okay, oh, I don't have a project, I cannot research, cannot do my research, therefore I can. So it cannot be that way. But also, at least, you must have to show certain evidence that you have worked in that area in terms of publications. Whether that publications are by doing by analytical research or done by some simulation kind of research, you should show that you have some potential. And once you are working on the area through simulation and through analytical, whatever approach you are following, you will have at least an idea what is new that can be done in the area, which is relevant and significant to the society, significant to the to contribute knowledge to the area and to develop resources. Like say, for example, I'll put an example. This QualNet is a simulation tool for network simulation. Globosym was its academic version, which was free and open source. And later on, Bhargava, I have forgotten the institution name right now, did develop it as a commercial tool in terms of quality. Globosym they developed. Later on, industry took it and they developed it as a product in terms of quality, which is commercial, and therefore they charge money also. But to develop it, this Globosym, they get funds from American defense agencies and then develop those tools. So even in the research area, to develop a simulation tool, you need funding, a good team. Then to develop a simulation tool with which you are contributing to the knowledge, contributing in terms of knowledge to that area, which will be used, tool will be used by a large research community and which will be publishing papers by simulating on these tools. That is what the developmental research is, where you need money, you have a team of good workers or good people and good programmers who can develop projects. So that you have to, that is what I said. And therefore, what we do is, uh, especially, let me little deviate in a computer science, we divide research into three fields. Either I may be doing too much of mathematical research, or you may be doing some kind of engineering and protocol design. As I said, you design a good simulator, kind of engineering. Or you may be developing some application like somebody developed what you call a big IBM database like DB2. And they have a lot of research, but ultimately developed a database management tool. So these are the different kind of areas you can see. Anyway, having said this, let me. So this is how you have to look and what suits you and what you can design a project depending on your experience and knowledge. And then and the project agency because it's a specific requirement. But nevertheless, when you are writing a grant proposal, and the proposal must contain certain content uh, which may be common across all sponsoring agencies. Though there may be certain specific requirement of certain funding agencies which can be added, but some common, like say for example, every funding agency will require that you must give a project summary, small summary, so that in the first one they can see the summary whether it is worth fitting in their area or not, rather than writing a good big document about the project. And they also will say that a good summary on what is importance of your project and what is the justification for that. Why do you want to do that? You must write that in the project proposal. If you are not doing that, you are not justifying its significance, its relevance, and its audience, target audience also must be identified. I said whether it is a research community, whether it's a society, whether it's a government, all those target audience also must be identified in the beginning for whom you are trying to develop this project with, who are going to use it. That is what the target audience is. So in your uh, need for importance of the project, you must justify why do you want to do this project, who are your target audience, how the target audience are going to be benefited out of the outcome of the implementation of your project. If you justify that, then probably the reading, those who are evaluating, they'll read your summary, what you are going to do and how relevant it is. Then probably they'll also see it justified, it is really needed or not. That is what is important. Then you must also give a detailed description of the project. What that detailed description will contain, I'll go when I'll explain. But that may include, let me put it, the detailed description also have a larger literature review, how much you have researched, and it also contain what you put the summary and importance, both part of also are the part of the larger description. How much funds you need and what for funds for what kind of equipment you need to buy, what kind of staff you need, and how much money you need, what is outcome of your project, what is the expected output, what are the milestones you are going to achieve, and then finally then whatever money you are asking for, it must be justified. Why do you need this money for so and so? It must have a proper justification for that. So justification for the relevance and significance of the project, and justification for the money you are asking from the funding agency. If you want to do this, why do you ask this much money? Why not this much money? Right? That has to be justified. And then you must have a very well designed and defined plan and methodology. That how are you going to work out your project? Right? That means what are the methods and techniques and tools you are going to use in your project for development of the project, for researching in the project, for collecting data in the project, right? Or for collecting material, how do you collect material? How do you buy? From where do you buy? Right? And then you must have a planned schedule. How much time you will require to procure your equipments, to buy your material. If it is uh, material needs on the regular basis, how frequently you will buy it, right? And what is the time period? How much project you will do in the next 6 months? What will you do in after that next 6 months? How much time you need? How many years project you need? It is 3 year, 5 year, 1 year, 2 year. How much time you need to complete this project? Say you need 3 years. What will you do in the first year? What will you do in the second year? What will you do in the third year? What is the outcome in the first year? What is the outcome in the second year? What is the outcome in the third year? All that plan, probably a 6 month or yearly, depending on the requirement of the funding agency. You have to draw a per chart or a pie or a Gantt chart and so on and so forth. You have to draw and develop that. And that is what is important. And then finally, the project budget. If you have a budget and it needs a lot of things to be done, and that needs, I said, justification, your budget also needs justification. And in addition to all these sections, you also have some other sections depending on the need of the funding agency. They may need certain specific things and certain documents from uh, you, certain documents from the university and institution where you work, to find out what are the facilitating mechanism in your institution and what kind of support your university or institution will give, right? And what kind of manpower you have available in your institution and the university, right? And how the finances will be dispersed in your university or institution. All these details may be required, but not only that. One of the important aspects is your references in the project. That means that also give a good list of references, and latest references will make that you have really done a in-depth survey and lecture review in the area before writing this project proposal. If you have not done that, and probably it also be rejected. And not only that, they will also ask for your biodata, CV. And this CV should be little different than the CV you make for a normal CV, because here they will only like to focus on two things. One, your publications in the area of the project in which you are writing, what publications you have done, and the quality publications, and how much recently you have done, because the recent publications will show that how much active you are in the area. It's not that 10 years back you have done some good publication, after that no publication. They said, no, you are an inactive person in the area. So that is important. And plus, whatever article, then if you are supervising PhD student, then how many students you are supervised in the area? That will also tell your expertise in the area, right? Or if you have done other things in the area, that is what your CV must contain, in addition to your long experience and small details of your academic background or your experience. These are most important. What articles you have written, what kind of supervision you have done, what kind of projects you have done, that is what you need also to be done. And that is, I'll put it, and विशाल ब्रेक ले ले. हेलो,
Yes, sir.
ब्रेक करें 5 मिनट का.
Sir, we can take a one small water break.
हाँ, ठीक है ना, विल कंटिन्यू देन. पासवर्ड का जो भी है मुझे बता देना बस, ठीक है. अभी पानी आने पी लूं, मैंने सोचा.
हाँ, बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल.
विशाल सर, ये ब्रेक को थोड़ा टी ब्रेक करिए सर.
होंगे ना, जब आप दिल्ली में आओगे कभी, तो आपकी टी मेरे को उधार है सर.
सर अभी तो अकेला हूँ सर, खुद ही बनाना पड़ता है, पानी भी लेके पीना पड़ता है. 5 मिनट का ब्रेक सफिशिएंट नहीं है.
अच्छा, नहीं तो 20 मिनट्स का ब्रेक था सर, उसमें हम चाय पी सकते थे सर.
हाँ सर, वो छन्नी हुई रखी है, अभी उठ के जा नहीं पा रहा हूँ.
अच्छा,
ओके ओके ओके, थैंक यू.
थैंक यू. So your mic is mute, sir.
म्यूट कर रखा था।
अच्छा,
और पीछे कुछ भी चलता तो आवाज आती है ना फिर।
हाँ जी सर
चलो म्यूट, जब मैं नहीं बात करता हूँ तो म्यूट कर देता हूँ तुरंत।
जी।
शुरू करें?
जैसा आप बताएं सर, स्टार्ट कर लेते हैं।
हाँ हाँ, मैं तो तैयारी हूँ। तो करें शुरू?
यस सर।
ओके। Once again, this what I explained this slide, that what is minimum common required for any grant proposal, which you have to write and describe. Now let us go one by one in detail. The, uh, the small summary or the abstract or the short overview, whatever you call, different names can be given to it. Some call it summary, some call it abstract, some call it short overview of the project. This may include, if you look at, I said, the purpose of the goal of the project. What exactly you want to do in the project. It can be in terms of a state or statement or few statements. And then I said the need of the project or the societal impact of the project. That also, because this summary when I am writing, this summary is going separately to the, well, to not part of the whole description. It may be there, but also it has to be written separately. That is what some project grant proposal require, because rather than sending the full description, they may only send a short summary to the evaluators at time on the first. So it must contain the purpose and goal of the project, need of the project in terms of the societal impact, or whatever this is what, and then you must also describe what is the outcome, expected outcome of the project, the expected outcome of the project. What do you expect this from this project, that what will be the outcome and how this outcome will be achieved, right? And then the deliverables of the project. If you develop this project, what are you going to deliver? That means a small half paragraph, if I put that way, summary, especially focusing on those points, will definitely attract a reviewer. Anybody is looking at your project summary will definitely attract the person going through your project proposal, because your purpose is very well defined. It's a need and impact on the society or the audience is very well defined. What do you expect from this project, and how are you going to achieve it? That means a small way of, not full methodology, but in few sentences you are expressing it, and then what will you deliver out of this project. So that means the overall details of the project has been summarized here. So this summary is sufficient to understand what are you going to do. So this is what you must keep in that summary of the project. Secondly, and also some of the they also said the details of this. If you are writing in detail the justification, probably you will skip from the summary if some needs this. Some project description doesn't need this need of a project. So it depends on where you are fitting. But nevertheless, if you are doing this, and this is more of a detailed your literature survey, let me call it, because you can do this justify and give the significance and the need of the project if you have done a detailed literature review, where you will find what are the gaps in terms of the resources in the area. Now say for example, a new research area comes, I don't have a simulation tool available in the area. Like in 2000 or 1996, when people started working on ad hoc network, there are no simulation to simulate a tool for this. So therefore, some started developing QualNet, some started developing OmNet, some started developing one simulation. So different kind of simulation tools started getting developed, because that is where the research gap in the area is. You don't have resources available. Like if somebody, if you are working in the Indian language technology, and there is some disturbance, Vishal. Hello.
सर मेरा माइक ऑन था, सॉरी।
अच्छा अच्छा, नहीं ठीक ठीक है, मैंने कहा So there is a research gap, and there are no research tools available. If you are going to do something in Indian language technology, for example, now okay, you want to develop a machine translation system from Telugu to Tamil or Telugu to Hindi or Telugu to English, say for example today, or any Indian language, two Indian languages you choose. I say okay, you are trying to apply a statistical machine translation. You are trying to develop a machine translation system which will use statistical techniques. So for statistical techniques, you need large amount of data available, because based on the data, you will have a learning and training, and then probably you will do that. Now the question is, I don't have much data available in Indian languages in digital form. So one of the area may be the resource development. You don't have a resource, these are the gaps. So we have to create resource, big corpora you have to develop. And you call corpus or the parallel corpuses. That one in Hindi, English, Hindi, Telugu, Hindi, Tamil, parallel corpus you have to develop. So there are resource gaps. I don't have resources available. I don't have tools available. In the beginning, 96, there is no facility to type in Hindi language or Indian languages. So the project started with called GIST technology. Then hardware they developed, then you can type, you can have Hindi fonts with a lot of difficulty. So these are the resource gaps. And second is there is a gaps in the knowledge. That means when you started with the Indian language technology development, I take this example because we did a project on that long back, so it is easier for me to explain. So I am taking that example because when we did this project, now knowledge in the area, how much knowledge? Now say for example, lot of research has been done on English language. Now Indian languages now had been done in 96. I am taking this example when it began with 96 or 2000. There is no research done on these languages, whether we can use these languages directly for machine translation or developing certain tools for these languages or not. We don't have that kind of knowledge. So you have to, in addition to the resources available, you have to increase your knowledge base. Like say for example, what I am trying to say, English has a different kind of grammar, Indian languages are different kind of forms and different kind of grammars. And there are two genders, in some we have three genders. And a lot of differences. Those kind of research must be done there in terms of the computation I am talking. Language may have a research on that. Then the kind of opportunities. That means what kind of opportunities this research or this project is going to create. There's a gap. So therefore, these are the opportunities. If you fill up this, we'll be getting these opportunities, or there the tool will be used or the product will be used. Like say for example, with this machine translation, if you are able to develop, then the opportunities are huge, because the Google is using also now machine translation. So these are the opportunities where it will be used from the business or from the societal impacts. So this is what the justification you have to give, and you are trying to fill up those gaps in your project. That is what the basic idea of the justification is. If you, that means you have a good literature survey, you have found which are the resource gaps, which are the gaps in terms of knowledge, what are the opportunities. If you do that, you say I am fulfilling, then this is a very well defined justification of your project. Now, you have to write a detailed description of your project. And this detailed description, that means a full document I am talking about, which you call a grant proposal. Because these two things probably, they also need a separate document. You have to fill up online in the project area, but you have to make a big document which is called a project proposal document now in detail, which I call a project description. Now if you look at that, so you must write the aim of the projects. You must clarify what are the various objectives. Objective means sub goals. Aim is a one larger goal, then I have certain sub goals. Now, like for in machine translation, my goal may be, my aim is to develop a machine translation system from Hindi to Tamil, say for example. This is my overall aim of the project, right? Whether I use statistical, these are details of what kind of techniques I use, but my primary aim is to design, to develop a machine translation system for Hindi Tamil translation. automatic translation. That is what my aim is. Now, I may have certain objectives to that. Now, what is the objective? Probably when I begin with the project, maybe I may have to develop a system which checks the spelling and grammar for Hindi. Then my other objective is to develop a grammar and a spell checker for Tamil, say for example. Then I must see that what are the differences in the language, and then I must develop my parsers, and then I must develop an intermediate coding system, and then probably I will develop a full task. These are my small objectives. I develop this. So you have aim, then you have sub goals, which are your objectives, and then again justification which you have given there. In this detailed project, you give in detail with the reference to the material which you have used, the research papers, articles, project reports, whatever you have read from the past, and that is the literature survey. And these gaps and the gaps in terms of resources, knowledge, and opportunities which we discussed. In terms of that, you have to give the citations from where you have find this. That means you have read so and so paper from IEEE transaction or ACM transaction. You are giving to reference to cite that paper. So that which it will show that you have done a very good research. So it's a detailed justification and significance. So this whole document is your actual proposal. And then, okay, and its societal impact may be part of justification, how it is going to impact society if there is, or the research community, or this part could be part of the justification, cannot be separated. Or sometimes these headings are separately asked by some sponsoring agency. So you can have its societal impact separately as well. Then ultimately, what is your expected output? What is the output you'll get from this project? Or what is the expected outcome from that? So this is what is you have to describe. This is what my outcome will come, and maybe I will have a translation system, but before that I will have a good spell checker. I have a good what you call uh, grammar checker, so and so forth. So these can be your expected outcomes from this. And also sometimes some descriptions, some project proposals also say that how much work in this area has been done internationally and nationally. You have to describe that. That means you should have some knowledge of the international projects done, or nationally which institutions are doing projects. Say for example, I say okay, IIT Kanpur, IIT Mumbai, all IIT Chennai, or CDEC Pune are working on these languages, but this Hindi and Swan language is not done by them. That is the national work. If I look at the internationally, the Carnegie Mellon University has done a lot of work on language processing, translation system. Stanford has done a lot of work. I can give those references and then say this is what the international current status is and national current status. That is what is requirement at times. That it shows your in-depth knowledge of the area, and therefore you can justify that your project which you are writing the proposal is yes has a significance and you can get grant. Uh, then comes your project methodology and the plan. And now, one of the important criteria is what are the methods and techniques you are going to apply to carry out the research so that you can achieve this outcome, what is expected in your project. What techniques you apply, what algorithms you apply, what way you will conduct your research, where do you conduct your research, right? Where do you conduct it? From where you get data? So all these methodology and plan, everything has to be specified. The methods, the tools, the techniques you are going to use, that right? And then even if you have completed this project and you have achieved this outcome, how do you measure this achievement? Yes, what I have developed. You develop a translation tool. You said, okay, I have developed a spell checker. I have developed a grammar checker. Then I have a full machine. Then this is what you want to achieve. This is my outcome. But how do you measure this achievement? How good it is? How good your system is? So there should be certain techniques, evaluation of your outcome. If I have developed a spell checker as a byproduct and outcome, what is the quality of that? What are the major methods of measuring the achievements of the project. They also must be specified in your plans. That means what I'm trying to say, okay, yes, the moment I develop my spell checker and grammar checker, I'll give it to 10 universities and institutions to check it, and they'll take their data and use it for 6 months. And based on that report, then how good my work is, that I'll evaluate. This will be a technique to evaluate your outcome. Testing by different universities and institutions. I'll freely make them available and people will use it for 6 months, and that is a test. This is the matter I'll adopt to achieve my measure my achievement. Then comes achievable milestones. What I said is this outcomes in terms of it almost can be same as achievable milestones. That means okay, these outcomes I achieve, but why it becomes milestone? Milestone is that in some of the projects, the spell checker may be an independent entity as well, and the grammar checker can be an independent ID. But in some of the projects, these sub goals cannot be independent, existing independently. They will be only used in the final outcome. Then they cannot be called milestones. They are sub goals required to achieve the larger goal, but they cannot have any independent existence. But in this case, if you look at spell checker has an independent existence, and grammar checker has independent existence, so they can be taken as my milestone. So for first milestone, next 1 year I am going to give you a spell checker. Next 6 months I am going to give you a grammar checker. These are the milestones I am achieving at every mile, at every time zone of a year. So this is how the milestones are defined. If your project has this, if you bake in this your plan with the total methodology, how you are going to use it, what are the techniques and tools and resources you are going to apply for achieving this and measuring that, and will give lot of strength to your project exposure. And then finally you have to chalk out a plan, a schedule, a chart. It may be a PERT chart, it may be a Gantt chart, where you may draw a timeline when you will achieve which outcome. Probably I say that say first 6 months I am going to procure my equipment. That must be done. Next 6 months I am going to get my all materials required whatsoever is. Maybe next 6 months I'll develop a spell checker. Next 6 months I'll develop a grammar checker. That is 2 years job you have done. So you should have a timeline. What is to be achieved at after how much time? So that is what the schedule is. So that while you are implementing it, you have a timeline with you and you follow it and you can complete your project. Now, the most important is your budget. The moment I say budget, it is a very, very important factor. And budgets are always given in a very tabular format. And some of you may not be very interesting, but those who are new at least can understand, because we know what to write, what to do. And that is what the whole idea of this talk is. One is that this must be given in a tabular form, make a table, and this budget has to be given year-wise. Every year, how much money you need and for what you need the money. This is very important. So you can find out if how many years project you have. A 3-year project, 5-year project, you have to plan it. And that also depends on the funding agency. Like DST will give you some projects are given for only 3 years, some are given only for 1 year. So depending on the requirement of the funding agency and also the scope of your project, you can decide that how many years project it is, and accordingly you can decide the budget. And when you decide this, you also have to write the unit cost and the quantity. If you are buying some equipment, and say you are buying 10 computers, so each computer have a unit cost and how many you need, 10 quantity. The quantity and the unit cost has to be also mentioned. It's not when लिख दो कि I need 10 lakhs to buy computer. Doesn't make any sense. You cannot do that. You must have a very clear-cut idea what really you need. That is what the whole idea. Now, therefore, after having said this each Largely, the budget is divided in two heads. One is non-recurring, that is one-time grant, which will not occur again and again. You don't need money for again. And there is a recurring grant, where every year you need this money, because all funding agencies generally gives you money for a year from April to March. Indian financial year starts in April and goes in March. So you'll get 1 year budget from April to March. Then same money probably you need repeatedly next year, the next year, so on. Some money you need only one time run. You have to buy some computer equipment. Once you buy, they are used forever. Right? Laptop is bought ever means the project duration, not for lifetime. I'm only the word I am using ever in the context of the project lifetime. So in the project's lifetime, certain equipments what you bought one time and you need one time grant for that. And then certain grant in certain heads, you need money every year. That is called recurring grant. So if you look at this, so your equipment cost, maybe you have a social outreach activity you have to perform one time. You say, okay, I'll train one, or maybe also this can go also to the non-recurring depending on the funding. Some will say, okay, I'll give you only one time social outreach program money, SSR, social scientific social responsibility, that आप एक बार स्कूल में जाके बच्चों को पढ़ा दीजिए. You go to the school and tell about your project to the school children. Once I give you 40,000 rupees, do it once. One time grant हो गया, non recurring. If they said every year I'll give you this, it may be recurring grant, every year it's coming. So depends on the project nature of the project as well, and the plan and the what you call how the agency is going to see it. Then sometimes you are also given in the project the conference workshop grant. Okay, out of this project I'll have a conference or a workshop, or you can have every year workshop, depends on what the agency's objectives are. Some agencies don't give you conference or workshop in the project. They say, no, that is a separate grant you applied. In the project, will not give you any money for holding or conducting any conference, any workshops. But when you work on this MICT, they used to give conference workshop money. Then you also held a workshop and then gather people and then share knowledge. In some projects, especially in social science, you need to buy land and you must build a building for a project. If you so in that kind cases, these are all non-recurring grants, where there will be only one time grant, you get it and then use it, and next year you don't need it, and for the project lifetime you don't need it. So these are two kinds of grant. I think it should be very clear what does it mean to you, because many times what is recurring, what is non-recurring, what happens there. So this is what I thought I must make clear. Then you have also a recurring grant. If you want to have some staff in the project, the salary is recurring grant. Every month will give, every year the salary has to give. Even some sponsoring agencies say, no, oh, I'll give you 2 fellowships. You can put 2 fellow JRF or SRF. Right? JRF means 25,000 per month. SRF means 30,000 per month. And if your project is 3 year, every year you need 2 JRF means 20, 50, 50 into 12, 6 lakh per annum, 18 lakhs. So this is what is a recurring grant, and you may have a salary head in your project recurring grant, and then you can have a contingency grant. That means there are some contingencies occur. That means something happens all of a sudden it needs some money. Like say your computer hard disk is gone, you need to buy a new hard disk. What do? You can buy the contingency all of a sudden you need, you don't have to buy, you have to buy it immediately. Either it can be bought from contingency, right? And your printer is some problem, you have to get it repaired. So you took some money from this contingency and then repair your printer or something, those kind of things. So some urgency comes and where you need to spend money in the project, and that is what contingency grant, which will be every year because it is recurring. Every year this can happen, right? मेरे कमरे का दरवाजा टूट गया, वहाँ मेरा computer, everything is kept there. Then you have to fix it. Some money you need to give to the labor. So you need this. And then there are consumables. You need some items to be purchased. See, the contingency consumable has a difference where you need especially in consumable, you need to buy it, right? You have to buy hard disk, you have to buy a pen drive, you have to buy papers, you have to buy something, and which can be consumed, will not sustain. Used and finished. That is what consumable means. So you need some money for that also. So you need money for consumable items. When I do project, I'll buy paper rims. Once I take a print, this consumed. I need some disk, either hard disk, it may go bad, khatam, finish. So I need DVDs, which will be used and stored, and then once destroyed, finished. So these are all consumables, and you need to buy them every year. And especially if biological science, they need to buy chemicals. And chemicals, once an experiment is made, that that chemical is used, that is consumed. It doesn't remain. So they really need a large, huge amount of money on consumable heads. Whereas probably in computer science, I don't need much consumable money, but I don't need to buy day-to-day basis something to be consumed for my experimentation. So that is another head. And then you have a travel cost. While my project I'll publish, I'll go to present papers in the conference, I need a travel grant. So some funding agencies give travel grant that you can travel only within the country, not outside country. Some also project will need field work. Okay, I have to send my staff or my student to major environmental readings. So I have to send them to some area which are very highly polluted, and they'll go and stay for 1 month, and then they'll bring 1 month reading what is the pollution level at that environmental sciences. So that is the field work. They have to go to the field and measure the value, put some instrument at some place where it is highly polluted, and then monitor it every day and collect it. And you have to also go to a Himalayas where clean air is there and monitor, then see the difference. So could be a field work. You need separate money depending on the area. The heads may change, but staff, contingency, consumable, travel cost may be common for all. I need to go to the conference. Every area you need to attend conference. You need consumables, you need contingency, you need a staff if your project needs. Then publication costs. Some agencies may support you to give some grant as a publication charge to give any registration for conference proceedings and or paper published, or maybe even if you are published in a very journal which is very good journal, but it is an open access journal, it's money. Pay that cost, and okay, you put some miscellaneous cost, say some 50,000 will be used for something we don't recognize, whether it is contingency, consumable, anything. Probably it may fall in that, we'll get it done there, so put some money there. But if you add both the money, that non-recurring and recurring, that becomes your total grant. Because for each head, subheads, you have to give the money how much money you need, and it total sum that money. So both money will be a total amount of money you from the project you need. And then funding agency generally give you 10 to 15% overhead on that. If my project total recurring and non-recurring grant is 50 lakh, then if it's 50% is more overhead charge, it gives me 15% of 50 lakh is 7.5 lakh. So my project becomes 57.5. What is this overhead charge? These overhead charges are paid to the institution because you may be consuming the electricity, the water, and the using some rooms, other resources of the institution for carrying out this project, and it involves recurring and other costs. So the funding agency also give you that cost, which are called overhead charges of the project, and it is given on the total money. So every year it will come along with the budget comes. So what is overall I am trying to say is you must be very idea is to be very clear about these terminologies to be known to. Now once you have done that, uh, mostly your budget part is done. Now also what is needed is that they also need that the budget what you are asking for must be justified, as I said in the beginning. But budget also, the sponsoring agencies in generally they have a maximum limit of budget in a given area. Like if you're applying some project on science and technology board, they'll say okay, this project in this area can be given only up to 50 lakh, not more than that. So you write a project proposal, maybe आपने 55 का लिख दिया, then they'll give you 50. Some project of 50 lakh, which may be little more, less, whatever it is. And then you have to justify why do you need contingency money? Why do you need this much money? Why 1 lakh, 150,000? Why not 2 lakh? Why 5 lakh? Whatever you give, you have to give a justification for the money you are asking in the budget head. Now, some of the whether equipment, especially for equipment and manpower and travel, you have to they'll need a good justification. Contingency will not ask more, but you ask small money and they'll give you because they'll say, okay, contingency to zarurat padti and consumable. If you're asking huge amount in consumable for in biological sciences, you have to give justification because you need to buy these chemicals and which cost this. And if you are working in computer, I cannot give say I give 10 lakh of consumables. So what you will do with that? You cannot buy paper and all these cartridges or pen drives by these 10 lakh rupees. And so, okay, 1 lakh rupees per year is good enough for me as a contingency. And then consumable, okay, good. Give. Now, but some now of the funding agency now, what they require is if you're asking some equipment and you have to give the cost of the equipment, unit wise and total cost. When you give that, they also ask you some kind of what you call estimates. That's from some supplier. You have to take some estimate that this cost, this equipment cost this much. That has to be even submitted. Now, this is the new requirement that funding agency has been asking. Earlier, it was not all, but some. And then telegram has to be justified. Why do you need? And other heads has to be also justified. Why do you need this? In addition, that the other informations are also required. That is, say for example, there may be only one investigator of the project or one coordinator, or there may be more than one coordinator. When you do multidisciplinary project, if you're doing a project on bioinstrumentation, you need somebody from electronics and instrumentation and somebody from biological sciences. So you may have two investigators. If the project agency or the project requirement allows you to have more than an investigator, that is possible. Then you can have co-investigators because they need, in case the investigator leaves, if you have only one investigator, chief investigator or co-investigator, if that he leaves the university or the institution, who will handle the project? So it also need co-investigator or coordinator, one investigator and co-investigator, or some call chief investigator and investigator, some call chief coordinator coordinator. So that's terminology. So there can be more than one investigator, and that is what. And you have to submit, the project has to be submitted to the institution or the university, because only then you can say thus yes, university or institution supports, because all funds has to come to the university finance department. It will not come to you directly by the government agency. It doesn't come to the project investor, it comes to the institution from where it will be regulated as per the government of India rules. If it is a government funding agency, even it comes from the private agencies, the government institutions will regulate the spending of the money by the government of India rules. Doesn't matter. Then the brief CV of the investigator, as I said, give that. This will include the important research articles I said, and the research supervisions you have done, how many students you have supervised, which are the relevant thesis topics you have supervised in that area, and then you have previously completed projects or ongoing projects. Those details have been given so that it impresses the funding agency that you are capable of doing projects you have done in past, right? So this, in addition to your research articles, your supervision experience, that this also enhance the confidence of the agency that you can do that. And what are the important earlier, if you have completed certain project, what are their findings, their report? There's a report that has to be submitted so that the confidence is continued. Now let me. Okay, it is visible.
Sir, you have to share again that document, sir.
Okay, I'll do that. Let me confirm.
सर वही करना है, शेयर डॉक्यूमेंट, और वो वर्ड की फाइल आप ओपन हुआ होगा जो प्रपोजल है।
वो मैं खोल रहा था,
आया सर शेयर में?
आ जाएगा, 1 मिनट में आ जाएगा बस।
हाँ
मैं जरा खोल लूँ पहले। शेयर दिखा नहीं रहा है। No display, share content, make sure. Meeting in progress.
शेयर करेंगे उस वर्ड, जो एप्लीकेशन है उसमें वर्ड की फाइल दिखेगी, उसको खोल लीजिए।
पीडीएफ था, पीडीएफ।
हाँ पीडीएफ होगा सर, वही
पीडीएफ
पीडीएफ एक्रोबैट पे खोला है या सर ब्राउजर को खोला हुआ है?
मैंने एक्रोबैट पे खोला।
हाँ तो सर वहां पे शेयर करेंगे तो वो उसका वो दिखाएगा प्रीव्यू। वी हैव 5-6 स्क्रीन्स होंगी सर, उसमें से एक पीडीएफ की होगी।
एक बटन दिखा नहीं रहा, मैं देख रहा हूँ। ये एक मिनट, अभी आता हूँ। आज इसमें मेरा नाम आ रहा है कि मेरे बेटे का नाम आ रहा है? पता नहीं, बेटे का लैपटॉप यूज कर रहा
सर आप ही का लॉगिन से है सर,
हूँ। ठीक
मेल तो आप ही का है सर।
है, डॉक्यूमेंट मुझे चाहिए। अगर डॉक्यूमेंट खुल रहा तो प्रॉब्लम होती है ना।
नहीं शेयर हो रहा सर।
अभी होगा। एक्रोबैट पहले खोल लूँ। ये आ गया। एक्रोबैट को नीचे कर दूं ना, मैंने मिनिमाइज करने से कोई दिक्कत नहीं है ना?
नहीं सर, मिनिमाइज करने से कोई दिक्कत नहीं है,
अच्छा,
बस वहां पे शेयर करते हुए आप उस वाले डॉक्यूमेंट को सिलेक्ट कर लीजिएगा।
वही वही मैं कर रहा हूँ। शेयर एप्लीकेशन सारे डॉक्यूमेंट दिखाता नहीं आ रहा।
अदरवाइज आप मुझे मेल कर दीजिए, मैं शेयर कर देता हूँ।
एक मिनट, स्क्रीन में भी नहीं दिखा रहा, तो सारा स्क्रीन शेयर कर देता है ना।
हाँ सर अभी कुछ आ रहा है,
देखते
आपकी
हैं।
वेबएक्स स्क्रीन दिख रही है सर अभी तो।
हाँ? अच्छा,
हाँ बस आप अभी नहीं स्टॉप शेयरिंग नहीं करते, वो डेस्कटॉप पे खोल देते हैं। हाँ
अभी दोबारा करता हूँ,
जी।
दिखाई देना। रोज नया कुछ आता है प्रॉब्लम। यू वांट टू शेयर, यस ना। टेक्स्ट और ये दिखाने कैसे आएगा? नीचे कुछ क्लिक नहीं हो रहा। मेरा
सर आप मुझे मेल कर दीजिए, मैं शेयर कर देता हूँ, मीनवाइल हम क्वेश्चंस ले लेते हैं।
अच्छा ठीक है, मैं शेयर करता हूँ। अच्छा, अभी 2 मिनट बाद शेयर करता हूँ, पहले दूसरा काम कर लूँ,
हाँ
कंप्लीट कर लो पहले, है ना?
जी जी
पहले कंप्लीट कर लेता हूँ, अभी शेयर करता हूँ।
ठीक है सर, ऐसे कर लीजिए।
ओके। आ, आ, See, next is when you are doing a project, you have to also submit your progress report either 6 months or yearly.
सर पीपीटी से नहीं है सर इस टाइम
ओके नहीं आ रही, कुछ भी शेयर नहीं हो रहा ना।
नहीं
आप पीपीटी तो हो जाएगा, आ गया। आया
सर वो वही वेबएक्स वाली स्क्रीन आ रही है, तो एक्चुअली आप स्क्रीन वन ही सेलेक्ट कर लेते हो सर उसमें ना, उसकी वजह से ही हो रहा होगा।
एप्लीकेशन पर क्लिक कर रहा हूँ तो आ नहीं रहा है, खुल नहीं रहा है, प्रॉब्लम ये होगी ना। अब वो घूम रहा है, अभी शायद ढूंढ रहा है।
नहीं सर स्क्रीन वन पे क्लिक करिए आप, मैं बताता हूँ आपको, स्क्रीन वन पे क्लिक करो सर आप।
स्क्रीन वन का है,
मतलब जो भी शेयर, जो भी जैसे आपने अभी किया था ना सर, वैसे शेयर करिए।
स्क्रीन नहीं दिखा रहा ना।
नहीं नहीं, तो मैं वहीं पे हम डेस्कटॉप पे खोल लेंगे सर।
अच्छा ओके, अभी मैं क्या करूँ, इसको बंद करूँ, शेयर करता हूँ, ठीक है। और डिस्प्ले योर शेयर्ड स्क्रीन पता नहीं कह रहा, कहाँ डिस्प्ले कह रहा। अब आएगा,
कुछ आया सर
अब
अभी।
आएगा। So connect such experiments. That is what we expect. And further, what we expect is that we'll have some SCI publication journals with good impact factor. That is what is also expected from this research. And at least that's what we viewed, that 3 PhD must come out of this research project. And the data collected by this means will be used in future by the environmental research, what label pollution all around Jane. This is what the expected outcome we have. And this is what we don't know. Detail of the project is this. Say, for example, the title of the project is the development of routing and transport protocol for development or monitoring of air pollution. It has submitted to some specific scheme of DST. Say, I say this is by imagination that a science scheme. I am not giving you the real name. Science scheme in Department of Science and Technology. Then we wrote the project summary here in detail and what we are going to do and what is to be estimated, and same keyword, objective of the project which were there, and then the methodology, how to implement this. So it will include the procurement, installment of sensor gateway nodes, evaluation of the existing schemes by implementing on the real sensor nodes, and then some of the routing protocols, existing ones will be also, their performance will be evaluated on the real sensor nodes, and we'll develop a new transport protocol called ATP protocol, and then modeling and analysis of pollution data which will collect along with the environmental spectrum. This is we'll do in stepwise, and we have also put the expected outcome, the C code for running routing protocols for WS, and we have a C code for running ATP protocol, and a huge repository of the pollution data of different periods, and documents based on the modeling of data to be used for policy decisions. As far as pollution is concerned, whatever pollution data I will collect, based on that certain policy decision and some policy recommendations can be made. And we have also written the outcome of the project, the transfer of the code. I said there are some repetitions that I am not repeating what I have said. This is the whole document. Then you have a budget. Say for example, it said, okay, we need equipment, we need sensor for measuring of CO2, measuring CO, and then we need, I give it, each sensor will cost you 1,000 rupees, 10,000, then I will have 100 sensors, it costs 10 lakh rupees, NO2, CO2, there can be different kind of sensors, and then we'll have some gateway nodes, which will take data from sensors and send it to the center location, which may be GSM based, maybe Ethernet based, Wi-Fi based. Then we need some servers where the data will be collected, and I also need some laptops for my, as a project investigator, you need a laptop where you also monitor them. And then UPS you need, and the associated software tools chains, tool chain which is supplied by some software companies. We need some software through which we will monitor what is the data coming from these sensors at a central location, from which sensor the data is coming, how the data is changing, all that can be seen on my monitor. So I need a software tool. So I buy the software which will do all this for me. They are available in the market. So that is what my equipment. I said it will cost around 29 lakh 15,000 so and so forth. And then we'll have some project fellow, a JRF fellow. For 3 years, we'll be paid 8,73,000 with the rate of 28,000 per month, or 25,000 plus HRA, whatever. At that time, it was only 18,000 plus HRA 30%. So and then we look for a raw staff or field worker, but which was not given. Then we need some contingency for 5 years. We need some consumables. We need some travel within India, and total money was 49 lakh 98,600. And overall, the 15% contingency overhead comes to this, and this total 57 lakhs. And which the in this said only they used to keep 50 lakh max, and they gave us 46 or something. Now, for everything you need a justification. Then why do you need the equipment? The main objective of the project is to be research setup, which is possible with the help of hard and software. Then only you can conduct your research. Therefore, equipments are needed. And the project follow is needed to implement these scopes and to look after the degree, what call study and design these protocols and develop code. You need a project staff. In addition to the PhD student who are working with you. And then we said we need a field staff. We'll go to the field, and if the sense has a problem, he will maintain that. But then you need some contingency grant to accommodate. Your keyboard is not correct, cartridge you need, especially you need sense. All that is all justification has been given. Then this is important when you read the literature review. What in-depth study you have done with the references and citations. That is very, very important. That will tell that you have an in-depth idea in the area where you want to submit. Then you should have a bibliography or references what you have used. This is a sample I pick up. It was used in DST. Then you have to send the biodata of the investigator with, as I said, what you need. And also, they will also need an endorsement letter from an institution which says that we agree to be abide by these rules and allow the investigator to run project here, and a certificate from investigators that he abide by all the rules of the sponsoring agencies, and he will not submit this project to anywhere else, and right, same project, or he will not apply fund from. Okay, all these kind of certain endorsement and certificate from it. Some other documents may also be required. That is what the whole project is to be written. To close this, let me come back to my share screen with this. आ रहा मेरा?
हाँ जी.
Now that is how simple sample what I talked about is developed. Now you have to have a progress report of your project timely. So this project report must contain that how far the project has been completed. If it is 6 monthly or yearly report, then what are the activities you have carried out in this period? And then what are the tasks you have completed? The milestones you have achieved, if any difficulty and challenge faced, that also has to be, because that will tell that right, and then the funds spent till then, whose time, how much fund you have spent, and then also the progress report also must have a summary of your progress should be made, and the plan, whether you are meeting the accomplishing the plan which you have given in the beginning or not. If not, you must have an explanation that what caused delay to meet your plan. That must be part of your progress report. And then finally, when your project completed, you must submit a report which must contain the title of the project, the table of content, executive summary of project, the introduction when you started, and how your project was planned, and then what work you have completed, what milestones you have achieved, what work remain incompleted, and your discussions, conclusion, and recommendation. Recommendation, if you have developed some technology, then how this technology can be transferred either to the industry or academia. If you have developed some product, how this product can be delivered to the for the target audience, and who will do that, how it will be done. All these recommendations are to be made in this project. Finally, the references we have used. See, that means what we said. I'll conclude here now. The grant proposal must be prepared based on the research problem and requirements of the funding agency and your institution's mechanism. But you should have an idea, and you must have the knowledge of the equipment and material that you must explore in advance what you need to buy for this. It's not that I write anything and then I don't know what equipment I have to buy. All this has to be done in the beginning, and budget has to be justified. Outcomes has to be identified, and what are your achievable targets, and your presentation when you go to present your project to the funding agency, that must include and focus. It should be very focused and clearly mentioning what are your achievable targets, what are your expected outcomes, and your funds must be justifiable. If you make it very clear, I think the project will be good for the funding agency. And I have taken some help from some websites, and not clearly written that way. I have taken help and then written my own way how to make it. And with this, thank you very much for your patience. Vishal?
Thank you so much, sir. The outcome of this session is wonderful. That how we can prepare the DST project proposal and how we can submit at DST sub. So I request to participants, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, sir.
No.
Sir, you have mentioned some funding agencies, but sir, my question is, are there any other agencies apart from these agencies?
See, there are many, in addition to this national, there are other international agencies. Many biologists take projects from Wellcome Trust, and all those who are working in social science, they also take from Bill Gates Foundation, Ford Foundation. There are various foundations which also take projects. For scientific research, also the Wellcome Trust and European Union has got the projects, and there are some projects on extinguishing languages which are dying. Also, international bodies also give funding. So one has to look for oneself and explore. And I cannot be knowing all funding agencies that way.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir, can you please explain what are overhead charges? Overhead charges.
Okay, overhead charges are the funding agency gives to the institution. If I'm in JNU, when I submit this project to DST, DST gives 15% of the total cost to JNU. If my project is 50 lakh, 1 crore rupees, so DST will give 1 crore 50 lakh, 15 lakh, and that 15 lakh is overhead. It is meant for, because JNU will give the electricity. If you run a project, you will be spending electricity, you will water, cleaning, everything, all resources for running the project has to be provided you by the JNU, and to meet that cost, funding agency gives overhead charges.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
one question. There is a one question from Mr. Irwin. Sir, can we apply for the project before the PhD completion?
See, there is no such condition basically as for the project agencies there. But the question is, they will definitely see your expertise in the area before granting you project. If you have a good, maybe working as a scientist somewhere and have a good publication, then this probably you can get project as well. But it will depend on how much publications, how much expertise you have. There should be some evidence of that.
There is another question. Dr. Lalit sir, there is a, I think question is incomplete. Can you please unmute yourself and ask the question?
Sir, my question is, hello.
Yeah, I got it. Some agency can come with other. Yeah, I have read this question. Can I answer?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Lalit, see, what he is saying is, I have a partial funding from some agency and partial funding for some other agency. That's what your question is. So for the same project, you cannot submit it to two places, because I said they also will take your certificate that you will not submit this project anywhere else. Now, only question is, If you have a project, you take fund from somewhere, and then you extend it, and then that extended version can be submitted somewhere else. But the same project you cannot submit at two places and get funds, even if it is partial fund. That is not possible.
Hello, sir. I have one questions. Hello.
Hello.
No, sir. Most of our research we are doing for academic purpose only. So,
Yeah.
writing for the social impact of the project is very difficult to write, sir. What are the outcomes we have to write? Mostly we are doing from academic research. So,
Yeah.
that writing justification is very difficult, sir.
What I said is, I said you have three kind of target audience. One may be
Yes.
some project, the society is the target. You are developing some product for the for society. In some cases, the researcher may be target. Some cases, the government agency may be target for which you will develop some policies, right?
Yes.
So it's not always the society is the ultimate target. So it may not have all the time, all projects cannot have a direct impact on the society. So your target audience maybe researchers, you develop some tool. Say for example, if you develop a simulator for machine learning, probably the research community is the target audience. So it may not have bigger impact on the society as such, but it will have target on the research community.
Yes, yes.
That is the
On-
impact. Yes,
yes.
I do agree with that.
So, what to write on national and international outcomes of the project, importance of the project, sir?
See,
National
it
and
is
importance.
that see, not all agencies ask for this. Some agencies say that they don't ask the international relation importance. What they said is how much work in the area has been done nationally and internationally.
Yes.
Right? Say for example, if you are working projects in the area, then the project may be running in various places, international institutions and national institutions. They would like to know where the projects are running and where your project is similar to that or how different your project is. Basically, they ask for this. They will not ask international impact of the project in general.
Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, thank you, sir.
Hello?
Indo-German projects are there.
Yes, sir. I'm asking about Indo-German, Indo-US project. I just want to ask about how to get the partner. And the second question is, what is the procedure? Means, is it the
See,
tedious procedure to, because in their guidelines they are writing like some partners should be from there.
you are referring
So
to some DST or some other? This is state from DAD and
yes,
then
sir.
DST.
DST.
Referring to DST, na?
Yes,
See
sir.
now, what DST has done is they have project and they have identified some of the institutions in the India, like IITs and JNU is also one of the institutions. JNU looks after India and I've forgotten. US and India looked after IIT, Delhi or Kanpur or Kharagpur. Main agency is Kharagpur. And India,
Okay.
US is by some IIT, India, England is by some other IIT, and so on and so forth. And they also see that though institutions where you will have a collaboration must be in 100 this we call list of ranking. You know, there are three what called QS
Yes, sir.
ranking, and then you need somebody to be there. So one way is if you're trying to do that, you have to identify the university and then try to interact with some of the professors there in their area. That is what we do at times. So you interact with them and say that these are the projects that you will like to this, and sometimes they agree. People agree from foreign as well, because everybody needs to have a project in collaboration because it has a lot of chances. They can come here, you can go there, and but ultimate problem is, which I did not discuss here, is getting a project is difficult as a funding is limited, and there is also a community politics involved in that also. I'll very frankly share this because getting a project in this country is not that easy. You need lot of you should be a resourceful person as far as the evaluation of the project is concerned. No doubt about that, and so therefore people try to look after the people who are very influential. That is how the things are moving on. But
Okay, sir.
still, I'll try to write a good project and with collaborate with somebody from foreign, you'll get it. I think then it keeps on coming every year. I also submitted, I did not get it, no problem.
Okay, sir. Okay.
मुझे भी नहीं मिला.
ठीक you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Vishal?
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
There are no pending queries in the chat window.
चलिए मेरा घूमने वॉक का टाइम भी हो गया है.
सर मैं देखता हूँ सर अब आइए सर है.
Hey, Professor Lobiyal, good evening.
Thank you.
The participants have asked you many questions despite the fact that the first MCQ test, the first test is scheduled for them today.
Okay.
But many questions, and I think this presentation was very informative, exhaustive, and will be of use to all the participants. And in coming days, teaching profession cannot be sustainable unless the teachers undertake research project from any of the funding. Maybe even this person will not be useful for getting minor project or mini project from their own university also, under some YouTube or other contingency funds. So unless people think of doing some project, unless people think of generating some internal revenue, probably in coming days the teaching profession will not sustain. So that's my view on this, and it has been very exhaustive. Again, a certificate, not to establish that you delivered a lecture, but to establish that you remember this FDP and you are part of this FDP. That's all.
Also, I can show that during this lockdown, I have been working from home.
Good. Yeah, you are working from home, correct?
That is the evidence.
That is an evidence, correct.
But anyway, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, because I also this gave me a chance to put my thought on the PPT.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for giving the chance. So,
Right.
I also, because further I can develop my lecture and talk on those lines.
Yeah, we have been discussing many times on this topic,
Yeah.
but never in presentation shape. So we thought that let's bring it in presentation shape. My teachers used to say to me that if you do not like a subject or you do not understand a subject, the best way to understand the subject is to take that paper to teach him to the students. The moment you will teach 1 year, you will be expert of that subject. So that is very good and wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
It also took a lot of toil for me to put everything in the PPTs.
Absolutely true.
Sir, once you will be free, please share me the PPT, sir, because participants have to give the test by today 8 o'clock. So I will share this PPT because we have taken 3-4 questions from this PPT.
अभी देता हूँ.
जी sir. हाँ जी. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your valuable time to us. It was a very wonderful and informative session.
Wish you all the best for the MCQ test today. Please understand there is no negative marking. You should not be afraid of. This is not the only test like a NEET or maybe JEE. There are multiple tests. If you by any means do not perform in this test, then there will be many other tests. Or even if you exhaust all the scheduled tests, then come back to me, I will give you more options. This is a kind of flexible system, not a rigid system of university. But do appear and definitely try to perform better and better. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you very much to all the participants for your cooperation and support to making this program interactive. And now we will meet at tomorrow.
So, just one query.
Yes, please.
I mean, how we need to appear for the MCQ on the same link that had been shared yesterday?
We will provide the link in the WhatsApp, ma'am.
Okay, fine, sir.
उत्तम एक बार दोबारा से प्रोसेस व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे डाल दो.
जी सर, हम शेयर कर देते हैं सर.
हाँ, and the team member should be available to resolve any of the queries between 8 to 8:30. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Right. All the best.
Sir, I have one more doubt. Like, I have booked only for 4 slots. Whether I can appear for 8 slots also?
You can of course appear for 8 slots, but no problem. You first appear in the. You have booked initial 4 slots or 4 slots in different weeks?
Different slot in 4 different weeks. One slot I have booked, sir.
Okay. You appear first today for today's test, And
Okay, sir.
then if you need others booking of other slots, let me know. We'll enable
Yeah.
that book, right?
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Manish sir, can you please close the